So the first part of this Chapter 8 test review, we have factoring, and notice 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all factoring quadratic trinomials, and the a value is 1, so we are able to jump right into the shortcut, doing the parentheses and putting x and x. And now the question is, what times what is positive 12 that if I combine together is positive 7? You might want to make a list. So there's a list of all the possibilities. Which pair of numbers gives you 7, 3 and 4, or 4 and 3, whatever you want. So you put 1 plus 4 and 1 plus 3, or 3 and 4, doesn't matter. And that's how you do the first 4. I hope you guys were able to do that. Please check your answers on Edmodo. They're already posted. Numbers 5, 6, and 7 says factor the trinomial if possible. If the trinomial cannot be factored using integers, write prime. If it's not factorable, you write prime. So number 6, for example, the a value is 1, so that one's also pretty easy to factor because you're able to jump straight to the shortcut, a t right here and a t right there, and you simply think what times what is 4, that if I add together is 2. Well, if you make a list of numbers, 4 times 1 is 4, or 2 times 2 is 4. Those are the only two possibilities. So which pair of numbers combines together to give you the middle value 2? Neither of them. So what does that mean? That this thing is not factorable, and we're going to write prime for number 6. Now, numbers 5 and 7, those are a little bit more challenging. Why? Because they have an a value that is not 1. So let's do number 5, for example. The a value is not 1, so we need to go through that multi-step process. Step 1 is to multiply a times c. And a times c, 3 times 8 is 24. Step 2 is to make a list of numbers of that multiple of that number 24. So there's my list. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Those are all the possibilities. Now, which pair of numbers, 1 and 24, if I add those together, I get 25. That's not a 25 in the middle. So which pair of numbers, when I add together, combine together, give me a negative 10? 4 and 6, right? Now, the only thing is 4 and 6 gives me a positive 10, and I know that I want it to be a negative 10. So I have the right numbers. I just have the wrong signs. So that's really going to be a negative 4 and a negative 6. Okay. The third step is to rewrite the quadratic trinomial, but instead of your b value being negative 10t, you're going to write it as negative 4t minus 6t. All right? You're going to rewrite your middle term as two separate terms, thus creating your trinomial to become a polynomial with 4 terms. Okay, now why do we want to do that? So we can factor by grouping. So what I want to do is I want to make some space, and I want to rewrite my expression right here, but as 4 terms. The middle term is going to become these 2 terms. Check it out. So there's my third step. I rewrote the trinomial, but as 4 terms instead of 3. That middle term, negative 10t, got changed to negative 4t minus 6t. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, which means I could try to factor by grouping. And notice I did leave a little bit of space right there. Let's zoom in. And on the first 2 terms, what could I pull out? What's the GCF? What is in common with this first one and this t, right? So let's pull out a t. If I pull out a t, what's going to be left on the inside? 3t minus 4, okay? Now, how about the second group over here, the minus 6 and the plus 8, the minus 6t and the plus 8? What could I pull out from there? What's a negative 2? And if I pull out a negative 2 from those second 2 terms, what's going to be left? 3t minus 4. Luckily, we end up with the same exact binomial, right? If we didn't have the same exact binomial, then it wouldn't be factorable. But we do have the same exact binomial. So what we're going to do now is factor out what's in common, the binomial and the binomial. We're going to pull it out and put it out here in front. So I want to put the 3t minus 4, I want to put it out here in front. And if I did pull out the 3t minus 4, what's going to be left on the inside of the parentheses? Well, if you pulled it out, you're going to have this t left over, and you're also going to have this minus 2 left over. And ladies and gentlemen, we are done. This is our factored form right here. We have 3t minus 4 times t minus 2. That is the factored form of number 5. Of course, to do all this, you need more space. It's not a good idea to do it like I did on the worksheet. I mean, there's not enough space to do all your work, especially with 7 being right here. You're going to have to do the same thing with number 7. Let's jump to the next section. Factor each polynomial, if possible, if the polynomial cannot be factored, write prime. Okay, so this is more of the same type of thing. Always try to pull out a GCF first. There is no GCF to pull out. Right here, nothing. Right here, nothing. So you're going to have to go through all those steps that we just did above. I'll tell you this, on the test tomorrow, I believe there's only 2 of them, 2 or 3, that you have an A value that's not 1, which means that you have to do that long process. Right here, we just gave you a lot of practice. So don't think, oh, you're going to have like 5 or 6 of them like you do right here. There's only going to be like 2 or 3 of them on the test tomorrow. Okay, I think 2. So the other ones are going to be pretty easy, but here's just more practice for you. 8, 9, and 10 is more practice. Let's jump to solving, because those are when you actually have an equation and you factor, so you could be able to split them with the zero product property and solve. So pick one, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15? 14. Okay. So notice that most of these have it equal to 0 and 14 does not. You want it to be equal to 0. So if you want to do number 14, the first thing to do would be set it equal to 0 by subtracting 108. If you subtract 108 on both sides, you're going to have a new quadratic trinomial k squared plus 3k minus 108 equals 0. Let me jot that down right here. So there's my new quadratic trinomial, k squared plus 3k minus 108 equals 0. And now at this point, I need to factor, split, and solve. So because the a value is 1, it's ready to rock. All you got to do is think of the answer format for the factored form and put your k right here and your k right there. Now you just need to think what times what is negative 108, that if I add together is 3. Now you might want to make a list. Let me make a list over here of the multiples of negative 108. And of course you could use calculators to help you out. With the help of a calculator, you could easily come up with all the possible multiples, right? 108 divided by 1, 108 divided by 2, divided by 3, divided by 4, divided by 5 doesn't work, divided by 6, and so on and so on. You can make that list. Now, which pair of numbers, when you combine them, give you a positive 3? Negative 9 and positive 12. And if you actually combine them, it really does give you a positive 3. So the numbers are great. I mean, the signs are fine. So you really have a minus 9 and a plus 12. Negative 9 and positive 12. That's the correct combo. Now we could go back and focus in on this part, because it's really something times something equals 0, which means that you could apply the zero product property and say that the first something could equal 0 and also the second something could equal 0. And of course you solve both of those simple equations and you'll get your two answers, k equals 9 and also k equals negative 12. So make sure you copy down all these in your notebook or on a separate sheet of paper, and you actually try to do all of them and check your answers on Edmodo. Number 16 is going to be done exact same way. Let's move on to something else. 17 is even easier. Why? Because it's already in factored form. So you already have something times something equals 0. You just split them and set them each equal to 0. So 4y plus 8, that's going to be equal to 0. And also 3y minus 2 is going to also be equal to 0. And now from there you just solve both simple equations. Let's zoom in and work on the 4y plus 8 equals 0. Of course we're going to subtract 8 on both sides. That'll cancel out. You're going to have 4y equals negative 8, and then you divide both sides by 4, which means that your final answer is going to be y equals negative 2. Now that's one answer. Now you want to also go to the other one and solve that one. You're going to get rid of that minus 2 by going plus 2, plus 2. You're going to end up with 3y equals 2. Let me zoom in a bit. So you're going to have 3y equals 2. You're going to divide both sides by 3. So you're going to get a final answer of y equals 2/3. So we get two answers, y equals negative 2 and y equals 2/3. for question 17. You didn't even have to factor, it was already factored for you. 19 and 20 and 21, that's all review from the first half of chapter 8. So there's not going to be that many of these guys, but it's really easy stuff. Adding is simply combining like terms. And remember, you want in standard form your highest exponent term first. So let's start with the highest exponent term, negative 4a squared. Let's write that down, negative 4a squared. There is nothing else to combine it with. But then you move on to your a's. You have a 6a right here, and then plus 5a right there. So because there's a plus sign between them, I don't have to worry about changing any signs. I just start combining like terms. So what is 6a plus 5a? Positive 11a. Okay, don't forget to put that positive in front of there. And then, is there any regular numbers? Yeah, there's a 4 out here at the very end. So let's just bring down that positive 4 at the very end. And ladies and gentlemen, this is your final standard form quadratic trinomial. Just finding the addition, you're just combining like terms. Now, the only one that's slightly tricky is finding the difference. When you have a minus sign, you have to change every single sign, right? So this q squared will actually be a negative q. This minus 7p will be a plus 7p. This 8p squared is going to be a minus 8p squared, right? What could I do? Maybe I could white that out. Hold on. There you go. Now it really does look like a minus. And you know what? Since I already distributed the minus sign into each and every term, I need to change this now to a positive if I want to keep it there, right? So this minus sign is no longer a minus because I already distributed it in, so I could just think of it as a plus now. Does everybody understand that? Yeah? Okay, so now it's just a question of combining like terms. And again, you're going to start with the highest exponential term, the negative 6q squared with this negative q squared with this negative 8q. Oh, wait, that's a p. Wow. Okay. Sorry. So let's start with what's alphabetical, Q, P or Q. P comes first, yeah? So let's start with P's. So I have negative 8p squared, and there's nothing else to combine it with, so let me just write it here, negative 8p squared. And then we go to the 12p and combine the 12p with the 7p. 12 plus 7 is 19p, positive 19p. And now we need to combine the q's. So let's go and combine the negative 6q squared with the negative q squared. So that's going to be a negative 7q squared. And then my last term is going to be this minus q all by itself. So this is the correct answer. Distributing, find the product. That one's pretty easy. You just think, okay, negative 6 times negative 6, that's positive 36. But what about the s squared times s to the third? That's going to be s to the fifth. And then we also have t to the fourth times t to the third. That's t to the seventh. Remember, when you multiply, the exponents get added. And that's your very first term. Then you got to distribute it to the second term. So when you go negative 6 times negative 4, that's positive 24. And then s squared times s is s to the third. And then t to the fourth times t to the fourth, that's t to the eighth. And last but not least, negative 6 times negative 5, that's positive 30. And also the s squared, you're just going to write it right there. S squared. And t to the fourth times t is going to be t to the fifth. T to the fifth. So that's your answer for 21. If they ask you to find the product of two binomials, you're going to have to actually distribute and then combine like terms if possible. But I have run out of time on this video. So we're going to jump to number 23 on the next video.